Action at order. Colonel, I'm sorry, but we cannot facilitate an evacuation for you or your men.
Sir, there it is. What the hell is it?
About 5% of the population aren't affected.
It's viral. It has to be viral. There is... All available resources should be directed to Naval Station Norfolk.
This man hangs up to the top.
Now, our colonel says he tried to fight him. Shot him. Tied him up. Armed. The orders are gonna come from
Shooting cloud out here. Expenditure of ammunition. My God, are they eating me?
World War Z, released in 2013, begins by giving the viewer almost no comfortable distance from collapse. The early threat is not presented as a problem that can be calmly defined before it arrives. It interrupts ordinary movement, family routine, and public space so quickly that the audience is placed beside Jerry Lane before either he or we have a reliable explanation for what is happening. That first position matters, because the film does not initially ask us to understand the crisis. It asks us to experience the limits of understanding it. For film perspective media, that makes the movie interesting in a way that goes beyond scale. The spectacle may be global, but our access is narrow. We see crowds, emergency responses, sudden violence, and fragments of information. Yet the film keeps returning to the practical boundaries of one man's awareness. Jerry is capable, observant, and experienced. But he is not all-knowing. The difference is important. Competence gives him a better chance of fleeing danger, while limited access prevents that competence from turning into certainty. The opening therefore creates a useful imbalance. Visually, the world seems enormous and uncontrollable. Narratively, however, the audience is attached to a small circle of immediate concerns, where Jerry's family is, what he can see from his position, what he can infer from behavior around him, and which pieces of information are trustworthy enough to act on. The movie lets the scale expand faster than the explanation. That gap between what is visible and what is understood becomes one of its strongest sources of tension. Brad Pitt's performance helps maintain that gap. Jerry is not played as someone who reacts to every new danger with theatrical panic. His attention often moves outward. He watches patterns, people, timing, and physical space, and that observational quality quietly shades the viewer's behavior as well. Instead of simply asking whether he will survive the next moment, we begin to look where he looks and notice what he notices. The film trains us to search the flame for usable information. At the same time, the movie does not immediately reward that search with a complete answer. News reports, military responses, hurried conversations, and chaotic public scenes provide pieces rather than a stable picture. Some information arrives too late, some is incomplete. Some matters only after Jerry has seen enough to connect it to something else. This means the audience is not positioned above the story, looking down at a clearly mapped disaster. We remain inside uncertainty with him. That is the first position World War Z establishes, close enough to feel the crisis but too restricted to comprehend its full shape. The obvious way to watch the film is as a race against overwhelming danger. Yet its more interesting structure begins somewhere quieter. It begins with the tension itself. The movie keeps asking whether survival depends less on seeing more than everyone else and more on recognizing which small detail deserves to change what you believe. That possibility is where the film's perspective starts to shift. The global emergency may dominate the screen, but the viewer's real journey is toward a more selective kind of knowledge, one that becomes increasingly valuable as certainty disappears. And because the film withholds any secure overview, each new location can alter what the audience thinks the crisis is. Geography expands the problem, but it also exposes the limits of every previous assumption. Scale does not produce clarity. Movement produces revision. World War Z builds its central perspective around a contrast between global catastrophe seen from the outside and survival knowledge discovered from inside one limited, human route. From a distance, the crisis appears almost impossible to process. Cities fall into disorder. Institutions struggle to respond, and entire populations seem to move as a single frightened mass. But Jerry Lane never receives the luxury of that distant overview. His understanding has to be assembled from partial access, specific encounters, and details that become meaningful only when compared with what he has already witnessed. That contrast defines the perspective axis of the film. One way of seeing the story emphasizes magnitude, humanity facing an event so large that individual experience seems insignificant. The other emphasizes concentration, one observer moving through that magnitude, and gradually learning that the smallest behavioral detail may contain more useful truth than the widest possible view. The film repeatedly places those two scales beside each other. Jerry can enter spaces connected to governments, military operations, medical expertise, and international response. But institutional access never gives him complete knowledge. Authority provides transportation, reports, equipment, and possibilities. It does not provide certainty. The people with the most resources are frequently confronting the same basic problem as everyone else. They are trying to understand something that is moving faster than their explanations. This is why audience position matters so much here. If the movie allowed us to know significantly more than Jerry, many sequences would become exercises in waiting for him to catch up. Instead, information is generally tied to what he can reasonably encounter and interpret. When a new possibility emerges, we are encouraged to evaluate it with him, rather than simply confirm something the film has already told us elsewhere. That alignment creates a particular kind of suspense. The question is not only whether danger is approaching. It is whether the current explanation of that danger is good enough. Gary is constantly working with provisional knowledge. A conclusion that seems useful in one location may prove incomplete in another. Something that initially appears incidental can become important later because the film gradually changes the context around it. The result is a story in which observation becomes a form of narrative power. Jerry cannot control the crisis, and for much of the film he cannot even fully explain it. What he can do is notice. Brad Pitt plays many of these moments with restraint, allowing Jerry's attention to become part of the movie's information system. A pause, a glance toward unexpected behavior, or a moment of quiet assessment tells the audience that looking carefully may matter more than reacting loudly. If the film does not present observation as magical intuition, Jerry's perspective remains dependent on movement and exposure. He needs other people, other places, and other forms of expertise because his own experience is insufficient. Every new environment effectively challenges the assumptions created by the previous one. The movie's geographical scale therefore serves more than spectacle. It keeps destabilizing certainty. That produces the film's broader perspective thesis. World War Z gains much of its tension by restricting a worldwide disaster to Jerry's incomplete access, then gradually teaching the audience to value selective observation over the illusion of total knowledge. This also explains why the film can feel simultaneously enormous and strangely intimate. Its images may suggest a crisis beyond any individual's comprehension, while its storytelling repeatedly narrows attention back to one person trying to decide which information deserves belief. The distance between those scales is not something the movie eliminates, it is something the movie uses. There is another consequence to that choice. Because Jerry becomes our primary route through the crisis, characters and communities he encounters are often understood according to how much access the film gives us to them. Some people briefly become sources of knowledge. Others remain almost entirely external to Jerry's experience. The world may be global, but narrative importance is unevenly distributed. That unevenness will matter more as the story develops. Jerry's position gives the audience mobility, but mobility is not the same as omniscience. Every place he reaches expands what we can see while reminding us how much remains beyond the frame. So the film's main contrast is not simply individual versus apocalypse. It is broad visibility versus meaningful understanding. World War Z can show us thousands of people in danger and still make its most important change in perspective occur when one person notices something that everyone else has been overlooking. From that point, the next issue becomes unavoidable. If Jerry's experience organizes so much of what the audience can know, then who truly owns the frame? And what happens to everyone whose experience remains outside it? Gary Lane owns the flame in World War Z not because the film declares him the most important person in the crisis, but because his access determines which parts of that crisis become intelligible to us. The outbreak is far larger than his experience. Yet the movie repeatedly refuses to leave him behind for long enough to construct an independent global picture. Governments, soldiers, scientists, civilians, and entire cities enter the story through his movement. Their realities become visible when his route intersects with them, and they disappear again when that route moves on. That gives Jerry an unusual kind of authority. He does not command the institutions around him, and he is frequently dependent on people with greater formal power. But the film grants him narrative mobility. He can move between domestic space, military infrastructure, international locations, and scientific discussion in a way most other characters cannot. As a result, the world gradually becomes organized around his ability to cross boundaries. The opening establishes this ownership carefully. Jerry is first positioned within his family rather than within an official role. That matters because it prevents his later access from feeling completely abstract. Before he becomes a route to a worldwide emergency, he is someone trying to understand immediate danger while protecting the people closest to him. The audience therefore learns his observational habits in a personal setting before those habits are transferred to larger environments. Once the story expands, his family remains emotionally important. But the film increasingly separates Jerry's physical perspective from theirs. This creates two different kinds of access. We know why he wants to survive and return, yet we rarely experience the developing global crisis independently through his family. Their position becomes something Jerry carries with him emotionally rather than a second narrative center capable of competing with his viewpoint. That decision strengthens his ownership of the film while also revealing its limitations. When Jerry reaches a new location, the people already living there possess histories, fears, and knowledge that began before he arrived. But the movie often introduces those realities at the moment they become relevant to his investigation. We do not inhabit every community long enough for its members to claim equal narrative authority. They are not necessarily treated as unimportant, but their experience is filtered through Jerry's need to understand what has happened and what he should learn from it. Framing supports this hierarchy. Large-scale images can temporarily make Jerry seem tiny within the disaster, but the film repeatedly returns to his reactions. A crowd may show the dimensions of panic. Jerry's attention tells us which element inside that crowd might matter. A military environment can suggest institutional scale. His conversations and observations convert that scale into information the audience can follow. The movie therefore alternates between making the individual look powerless and making his point of attention narratively decisive. Brad Pitt's restrained performance is essential here. If Jerry behaved like a conventional action hero who constantly dominated rooms, his ownership of the frame would feel like physical superiority. Instead, his authority often comes from listening. He allows other characters to speak, watches their reactions, and absorbs information before acting on it. That makes his centrality less obvious but more persistent. The film can present someone else as the expert in a particular moment while still making Jerry the person through whom that expertise becomes part of our understanding. Social position also changes what he is permitted to see. His previous professional connections and the value others place on his experience give him access unavailable to ordinary civilians. The movie does not hide this privilege. Jerry can enter protected spaces and receive assistance because institutions believe he may be useful. His family's safety becomes linked to that usefulness, turning access into both an advantage and a form of pressure. This creates a subtle tension in the film's perspective. Jerry is vulnerable to the same catastrophe as everyone else, but he is not positioned like everyone else. His mobility separates him from the anonymous crowds the movie often shows at a distance. Those crowds communicate scale, fear, and human cost, yet the film rarely asks us to know individual people inside them. Jerry remains recognizable, while thousands of others become movement. That contrast has consequences for sympathy. We instinctively measure danger according to its proximity to him and to people the film has allowed us to know. A massive event can therefore feel less immediate than a quiet moment in which Jerry realizes that a specific person is at risk. The number of people visible in an image does not automatically determine emotional weight. Access does. World War Z uses this imbalance efficiently because Jerry functions as both participant and observer. He is inside dangerous situations, but his behavior repeatedly creates a slight analytical distance from them. He watches while running. He studies while being threatened. That dual position allows the film to remain a survival thriller without surrendering entirely to panic. It also means that characters who cannot move with him are gradually pushed toward the edge of the narrative. Their perspective does not vanish because the movie believes it lacks value. It vanishes because the structure privileges the person capable of carrying information from one environment into another. Jerry becomes a connecting point between otherwise separated fragments of the catastrophe. So who owns the flame? Jerry does, but conditionally. The world is too large for him to dominate, and every new location reminds us that he is arriving late to somebody else's disaster. His importance comes from the film's decision to make those separate disasters legible through his encounters with them. That choice prepares the next stage of the movie's perspective. Once one character becomes the main route through a crisis this large, control of the frame becomes control of information. What matters next is not simply where Jerry can go, but what the film allows him, and therefore allows us to know. Information in World War Z rarely arrives as a complete explanation. The film distributes knowledge in fragments, and that fragmentation determines how the audience experiences nearly every stage of Jerry Lane's journey. We are shown enough to recognize that the crisis is immense, but not enough to understand its behavior with confidence. The gap between those two conditions, seeing the consequences and understanding the cause, keeps Jerry and the viewer in almost the same position. Early in the film, public information is everywhere, and certainty is almost nowhere. Television reports, emergency movement, confused civilians, military responses, and scattered observations suggest that something unprecedented is happening. Yet none of these sources provides a stable interpretation. The film deliberately separates visibility from comprehension. We can see that society is failing before anyone can explain precisely what rules now govern survival. That distinction matters because disaster films often create suspense by giving the audience privileged information. We may know where the danger is located while characters remain unaware or understand the threat before authorities accept it. World War Z usually resists that advantage. Jerry learns through exposure, and our understanding grows at roughly the same pace. When he encounters a new clue, the film does not usually cut away to confirm whether his interpretation is correct. It allows the possibility to remain provisional. This makes Jerry's reliability unusual. He is not unreliable because he deceives us or misrepresents events. He is unreliable in the more ordinary human sense that his information is incomplete. His conclusions can only be as strong as the evidence available at the moment. The film respects that limitation. Instead of pretending professional experience gives him instant answers. His background nevertheless affects how he processes uncertainty. Jerry tends to convert panic into questions. Rather than treating every frightening event as interchangeable, he looks for distinctions, timing, behavior, repetition, exceptions. The audience is encouraged to adopt the same habit. Danger becomes something to observe as well as escape. That creates an important shift in what counts as useful information. Institutional knowledge initially appears likely to provide the strongest answers. Governments have communication systems. Military organizations can collect reports. Scientists can formulate hypotheses. Yet the film repeatedly shows that large institutions are receiving fragments too. Their broader reach does not automatically create a complete picture, because the crisis is changing and spreading faster than those fragments can be assembled. As Jerry moves between locations, each environment becomes a temporary information system. Someone there knows something he does not. A local response may reveal a pattern. A failed assumption may expose the weakness of an earlier explanation. A person with specialized knowledge may offer a theory that sounds promising without being definitive. The movie keeps replacing certainty with better questions. This is where the distinction between character knowledge and audience knowledge becomes particularly important. The viewer occasionally sees more physical scale than Jerry could literally observe from his immediate position. Large images allow us to understand how extensive the catastrophe has become, but scale is not the same as explanatory knowledge. The camera may show us thousands of infected moving through an environment, yet that image does not necessarily tell us what Jerry needs to know about their behavior. The film therefore grants the audience visual privilege while withholding interpretive privilege. We can sometimes see more, but we rarely understand much more. That balance keeps Jerry central even when the spectacle temporarily exceeds his personal field of vision. The withholding also changes suspense from sequence to sequence. When information is scarce, tension comes from unpredictability. Once Jerry begins identifying patterns, tension changes form. The audience starts anticipating whether a pattern will repeat and watching for exceptions. We become less passive. The film has trained us to treat behavior as evidence. That training is significant because World War Z does not build its investigation around one spectacular revelation delivered all at once. Understanding accumulates. Individual observations may seem minor when they first appear. Their importance grows when later experience provides a new context for them. This means the editing order has analytical consequences. A detail encountered earlier can remain unresolved in the viewer's memory until another situation makes it newly legible. The film does not need to announce every connection immediately. Delayed meaning allows an ordinary observation to acquire greater importance after the audience has seen enough to reconsider it. Jerry's movement also exposes the limits of testimony. People describe what they have experienced, but each account comes from a specific position. A soldier understands one part of the crisis, a scientist approaches another. A survivor knows what happened in one place. An official may know what decisions were made, but not what those decisions failed to anticipate. Nobody possesses the complete story. The movie's global structure could have turned those voices into an encyclopedia of the outbreak. Instead, they remain partial. Jerry must compare them against direct observation. Authority alone is not sufficient. A claim becomes useful when events support it. That approach creates sympathy in a less obvious way. Because Jerry is rarely certain, his decisions are not presented as the actions of someone who has mastered the situation. He is constantly operating with risk. The audience understands why an apparently sensible choice might fail because we have seen how incomplete the available knowledge is. At the same time, the film avoids turning uncertainty into endless confusion. Jerry's observational discipline gives the story direction. Each fragment narrows the range of possibilities. The viewer may not know the final answer, but we can feel the investigation becoming more precise. That precision distinguishes useful knowledge from sheer information. World War Z contains enormous amounts of activity, yet Jerry's task is essentially selective. He must identify which detail changes the meaning of everything around it. The movie positions us to make that selection with him. And once the audience begins watching in that way, the crisis itself starts to look different. The infected are no longer perceived only as an overwhelming mass. Their behavior becomes something capable of being compared, tested against previous observations, and reconsidered. That is the first major consequence of the film's information strategy. Fear initially comes from not knowing what is happening. Gradually, suspense comes from realizing that something can be learned, but only if Jerry and the audience beside him are willing to revise what they thought they understood. The film is now ready for its first substantial change in position. The question is no longer simply how much information Jerry can obtain. It is what happens when one observation forces him to interpret earlier events differently and turns passive survival into a more deliberate search for a pattern. The first important shift in World War Z occurs when Jelly Lane begins to stop treating the infected simply as an unstoppable mass and starts treating their behavior as information. Until this point, the dominant experience has been one of overwhelming scale. Crowds transform with terrifying speed. Defensive systems fail, and every environment seems temporary. Jerry has been observing throughout, but observation has mostly helped him survive immediate situations. Gradually, the film changes the purpose of that attention. What he notices may explain something larger than the danger directly in front of him. The distinction is subtle because the infected remain visually overwhelming. World War Z does not suddenly reduce them to a neat scientific problem. Their movement still appears chaotic, collective, and difficult to predict. Yet, Jerry begins noticing that apparent chaos contains distinctions. Not every encounter unfolds identically. Certain reactions do not fit the simplest assumption that the infected respond to every nearby human being in exactly the same way. That is where the audience's position changes with his. Earlier, we have largely been encouraged to scan environments for immediate threats. Where can Jerry move? Where will the next attack come from? Which space still offers temporary protection? The film now encourages a different form of looking. Instead of asking only where danger is located, we begin asking what determines its behavior. This changes the meaning of several earlier sequences. Details that could initially be dismissed as incidental acquire potential significance. A brief hesitation becomes worth remembering. An apparent exception no longer looks like random staging. Jerry's attention gives those irregularities weight, and because the film has kept our information close to his, we are invited to reconsider them at nearly the same moment. Brad Pitt's performance keeps this transition grounded. Jerry does not announce that he has solved the crisis. His behavior suggests something more tentative. He observes, stores the detail, and continues moving because circumstances do not allow the luxury of immediate certainty. The restraint matters. If the film transformed every observation into instant revelation, Jerry would begin to feel impossibly insightful. Instead, his strength lies in allowing unresolved information to remain unresolved until another encounter gives it context. The shift becomes clearer as his journey exposes him to increasingly different responses to the outbreak. Military organization can create temporary control. Physical barriers can create temporary separation. Knowledge can help people anticipate danger. But every protective system carries assumptions about what the threat will do. When those assumptions prove incomplete, scale and authority become less reassuring. One of the film's most striking reversals comes from this contrast between confidence and vulnerability. A place can appear far more prepared than the chaotic environments Jerry has already crossed, and that preparation initially changes the emotional distance of the viewer. For perhaps the first time, organization seems capable of giving people room to think instead of merely react. But World War Z is suspicious of security that depends on a stable reading of the threat. The infected do not recognize human confidence. A defense that appears formidable from the human side can become fragile when behavior changes faster than expectation. The film uses this reversal to move Jerry's authority away from institutions and toward accumulated observation. He still needs specialists, transportation, protection, and information from others. But the story increasingly suggests that no single institution possesses the perspective necessary to interpret everything. Jerry's advantage is that he carries fragments from one environment into another. He can compare. That ability is more important than it initially appears. Someone who experiences only one outbreak may understand that particular event extremely well while still lacking the context necessary to recognize an exception. Jerry's movement gives him a strange form of knowledge, not mastery of one location, but repeated exposure to different versions of the same crisis. The viewer acquires that comparative position with him. We have also traveled through those environments. We have watched responses fail for different reasons. We have seen danger under different social and physical conditions. So when Jerry focuses on an irregular behavior, the film has already prepared us to understand why an irregularity matters. This is the first major shift from spectacle toward interpretation. It also changes what Jerry represents. At the beginning, his competence primarily helps protect his family and navigate immediate collapse. Now that same competence becomes analytical. His survival skills matter because they keep him alive long enough to continue observing, but survival itself is no longer the entire dramatic objective. The movie begins redirecting his attention from escaping the infected toward understanding what their behavior might reveal. Importantly, World War Z does not make this transition by abandoning fear. Observation actually makes some situations more tense, because Jerry occasionally needs enough proximity to verify what he thinks he has noticed. The viewer is caught between two impulses, wanting him to leave danger immediately and understanding why another second of attention might matter. That tension is central to the film's changing perspective. Distance is safer, but distance can conceal useful detail. Proximity is dangerous, but it can produce knowledge. Jerry therefore occupies an increasingly complicated position. He is neither a detached researcher nor simply another person running for safety. He must observe from inside the conditions he is trying to understand. The film turns that contradiction into its method. The shift also begins to weaken the visual authority of crowds. Earlier, a mass of infected can dominate our attention simply through scale and speed. Once Jerry starts identifying behavioral differences, an individual interaction can become more important than thousands of bodies in motion. The enormous image still generates fear, but the smaller image may now contain the more consequential information. This is an important rebalancing of the film. World War Z initially teaches us that the crisis is too large for any individual to comprehend. It now suggests that comprehension may begin precisely by narrowing attention, not by seeing everything, by seeing the right exception. The film has not yet turned that exception into complete certainty, and that restraint keeps the shift convincing. Gary is accumulating a hypothesis rather than receiving a solution. His viewpoint has changed before his knowledge is complete. And that means the audience has changed with him. We are no longer watching only to discover whether the next defensive position will survive. We are watching behavior, searching for inconsistency, and beginning to understand that what the infected fail to do may eventually matter as much as what they do. That realization leads naturally to another question about perspective. Jerry is becoming increasingly readable to us through what he notices, but emotionally he remains unusually contained. The closer the film brings us to his observations, the more apparent it becomes that it often keeps his inner life at a deliberate distance. Jerry Lane is an unusual center for a film built around constant danger because World War Z gives us sustained access to his attention without giving us equally sustained access to his emotions. We understand what he is looking at, what he is trying to determine, and why particular information matters to him. Yet the film rarely slows down long enough to make his inner life completely transparent. That distance is not accidental to the experience. It allows Jerry to function simultaneously as a person under pressure and as the audience's instrument for reading an unstable world. Brad Pitt plays Jerry with a controlled physical presence. His reactions are often compressed rather than exaggerated. Even when the environment around him becomes chaotic, he tends to watch before displaying emotion. This does not mean the character lacks fear. The film frequently makes his vulnerability obvious. What changes is how that fear is communicated. Instead of turning every dangerous encounter into an expressive performance, Pitt often lets concern appear through concentration, hesitation, posture, or the speed with which Jerry begins assessing the next problem. That restraint keeps the audience close to his practical thinking while maintaining some emotional distance. We know what he values most clearly through his relationship with his family. Their safety establishes the personal stakes of his journey, and his separation from them gives the global mission an intimate pressure. But the film does not repeatedly stop to dramatize his feelings about that separation in long reflective scenes. Jerry carries those feelings into action rather than explaining them. The result is a character whose interiority is partly withheld. This withholding fits the film's larger perspective strategy. World War Z is interested in incomplete access at almost every level. Jerry cannot see the entire crisis. Institutions cannot fully explain it. Communities understand only portions of what is happening around them. In a similar way, the audience does not receive complete psychological access to Jerry. We remain close enough to recognize his priorities but distant enough that his behavior must often speak for him. That becomes especially important when he interacts with other people. Jerry tends to create space for information rather than dominate encounters emotionally. He listens. He observes how others respond. When someone possesses knowledge he needs, the film temporarily shifts attention toward that person, but Jerry remains the point through which the information is evaluated. This creates a useful paradox. He is the central character, yet his performance frequently depends on reaction rather than display. Other people may bring urgency, fear, authority, grief, or specialized knowledge into a scene. Jerry's quieter response becomes the stabilizing element that allows the audience to process those different energies. The film's treatment of his family demonstrates the other side of this distance. Jerry's attachment to them is never seriously in doubt. Their presence humanizes his competence because the story establishes that he is not pursuing knowledge simply out of professional curiosity. He has something immediate to lose. Yet once his journey expands, the movie resists splitting itself into two equally developed viewpoints. That choice concentrates the narrative but also limits emotional breadth. We remain attached primarily to Jerry's route, while the people waiting for him are often experienced through his concern rather than through fully independent perspectives. The film protects its forward momentum by keeping the audience aligned with the moving character. This is one reason Jerry can sometimes seem less psychologically exposed than protagonists in more intimate dramas. World War Z does not construct him around a complex confession, a destabilized identity, or a prolonged internal argument. His emotional architecture is comparatively direct. Family matters. Survival matters. Responsibility matters. The uncertainty lies less in what he wants than in whether the world can be understood well enough for him to act effectively. That simplicity is functional. Because Jerry is relatively stable, the changing environments can become the variable. The world shifts around him while his observational discipline provides continuity. If his psychology were changing as dramatically as the external situation, the viewer would have two unstable systems to interpret at once. Instead, the film uses his steadiness as an anchor. But steadiness should not be confused with invulnerability. The movie repeatedly places Jerry in situations where expertise offers no guarantee of control. He can make careful decisions and still depend on chance, assistance, timing, or somebody else's competence. That dependence prevents the performance from becoming pure heroic command. Pitt often looks most convincing when Jerry is calculating without possessing authority over the outcome. His physical relationship to space reinforces this quality. In crowded environments, he can be swallowed by movement like anyone else. In institutional environments, he may be surrounded by people with more formal power. In dangerous spaces, he frequently has to respond to conditions rather than dictate them. The film centers him narratively without pretending the world itself centers him. That distinction affects empathy. We are encouraged to care about Jerry because we spend time with him and understand what is at stake for him. But the film also keeps showing environments where his personal concerns are only one small part of a much larger disaster. He is central to our experience, not necessarily central to the catastrophe. This prevents the audience from fully confusing narrative importance with universal importance. It also explains why the movie's quieter reactions can matter more than its larger gestures. When Jerry notices something unusual, the camera does not always need an elaborate declaration to tell us that his understanding is changing. His attention has already been established as meaningful. The viewer has learned that a change in where he looks may signal a change in what the film wants us to consider. Distance therefore becomes productive rather than merely limiting. Because Jerry does not continuously explain himself, the audience has to participate in reading him. Because he does not dominate every interaction, other characters can temporarily alter his understanding. Because his emotional expression remains controlled, small reactions can carry disproportionate weight. There is still a cost. Some viewers may find his restraint makes the character less emotionally textured than the extraordinary situation seems to invite. The movie rarely risks losing itself inside Jerry's fear, exhaustion, or uncertainty. It remains more interested in what he can perceive than in prolonged exploration of what the crisis is doing to him internally. Yet that limitation is also connected to the film's central strength. Jerry is designed as a mobile point of access. His emotional stability allows the audience to keep comparing places, responses, assumptions, and behaviors without constantly rebuilding its relationship with the protagonist. World War Z brings us very close to his eyes, while keeping a modest distance from his inner world, and once that distance becomes visible, another limitation in the film becomes easier to notice. If Jerry's route determines what deserves sustained attention, then entire experiences necessarily remain outside that route. The perspective that makes the story coherent also creates its largest blind spot. The largest blind spot created by World War Z is also a consequence of its most efficient storytelling decision. By attaching the audience so closely to Jerry Lane's movement, the film gives a worldwide catastrophe a coherent route. We always have someone through whom new information can be processed. But coherence comes at a cost. The more completely Jerry becomes our pathway through the crisis, the more the experiences of people who cannot travel with him are reduced to fragments, backgrounds, or consequences glimpsed from outside. This does not mean the film ignores the global scale of suffering. Quite the opposite. It repeatedly shows enormous crowds, overwhelmed public spaces, military responses, displaced civilians, and communities attempting to survive. The blind spot lies in the difference between seeing those people and knowing them. World War Z often provides broad visibility without equivalent emotional access. That distinction follows directly from the structure. Jerry arrives somewhere because the location may contain useful information. He observes what has happened, encounters people who can help him understand it, and moves again when the investigation demands another perspective. Each location expands the film's knowledge but only briefly expands its human center. The people already living through these environments therefore occupy a different narrative position from Jerry. Their catastrophe did not begin when he arrived, yet the film usually encounters it at that moment. We see enough to understand the urgency around them, but rarely enough to build a sustained relationship with their experience. This is not necessarily a plot hole or an accidental omission. It is largely the consequence of choosing a highly mobile protagonist for a story about a global event. Jerry functions as the thread connecting otherwise separated places. If the film repeatedly abandoned him to develop every community independently, the investigation would lose some of its momentum and the audience's information route would become much more dispersed. Still, the limitation matters because it affects how the crisis is understood. Jerry's professional access allows him to move through systems that ordinary people cannot. He receives transportation, protection, briefings, and opportunities because others believe his experience may contribute to a broader response. That gives the audience unusual access as well. We enter secure environments and specialized conversations through him. But this privilege can make survival appear more navigable than it is for most people inside the film. For Jerry, movement remains possible. When one environment fails, another destination may still exist. For countless others, there is no equivalent route. Their perspective is geographically fixed. They experience the crisis as something happening to the place where they already are, without the ability to step outside it and compare what they have seen with events somewhere else. The film recognizes that difference visually even when it does not explore it deeply. Jerry repeatedly passes through groups whose options are narrower than his own. Their presence reminds us that the knowledge he is gathering depends partly on opportunities unavailable to them. This complicates the idea that observation alone produces understanding. Jerry is observant, but he is also mobile. He can notice patterns because he has been exposed to different situations. His insight does not emerge from individual brilliance in isolation. It emerges from access to comparison. That is an important correction to the way the film initially positions him. If Jerry was simply portrayed as the one person clever enough to see what everyone else misses, World War Z would turn the global catastrophe into a celebration of exceptional intuition. The film is more interesting than that. His observations matter because he has accumulated experiences that most characters have not been allowed to accumulate. The blind spot, then, involves both character and structure. Jerry can only understand what his route makes visible, and the audience can only question what the movie allows us to see around that route. There are consequences to this limited access. Communities can sometimes appear primarily according to what they contribute to Jerry's developing understanding. One place demonstrates the fragility of preparation. Another provides testimony. Another exposes a behavioral detail. Human environments risk becoming stages in an information process rather than fully independent centers of experience. The film partly compensates by giving certain supporting characters brief but meaningful individuality. Their reactions, decisions, competence, and vulnerability can alter Jerry's progress and sometimes challenge his assumptions. These moments remind us that he does not possess the crisis. He is learning from people who have encountered parts of it before him. Yet the camera eventually travels onward with Jerry. That recurring departure tells us something fundamental about whose uncertainty matters most to the narrative. When Jerry leaves a location, we generally lose access to whatever happens there afterward. The film does not maintain multiple parallel viewpoints that would allow the audience to compare his interpretation with the continuing experiences of those left behind. This concentrates suspense beautifully, but it narrows perspective. The same limitation appears emotionally. Jerry's family provides the strongest personal connection outside his immediate journey, yet even they do not become an equal second viewpoint. Their circumstances matter because Jerry cares about them and because their security affects his choices. The movie rarely allows their independent understanding of the catastrophe to reorganize ours. In other words, World War Z is global in geography, but selective in subjectivity. Recognizing that blind spot does not invalidate the film's method. It explains what the method sacrifices. The restricted viewpoint keeps the narrative legible, and prevents the enormous scale from dissolving into disconnected stories. At the same time, it means that Jerry's version of the crisis becomes disproportionately influential, simply because he is the person permitted to connect its fragments. That distinction becomes more important as his knowledge grows. The better Jerry becomes at interpreting the infected, the easier it is for the audience to treat his perspective as authoritative. But authority inside World War Z is never neutral. The ability to define what is happening depends on who has information, who has mobility, who is believed, and who can turn an observation into action. Once those differences become visible, the film's next shift is no longer merely about knowledge, it is about power. Power in World War Z is unstable because almost every form of authority depends on information that may already be outdated. Governments can command resources, military forces can secure territory, specialists can propose explanations. Jerry Lane can move between these systems because his experience has value. Yet the film repeatedly separates having power from understanding the conditions in which that power must operate. That separation changes how the audience reads authority. At first, organized institutions appear to represent the opposite of chaos. A protected command center, an aircraft, a defended position, or a military unit seems to restore hierarchy. Someone is issuing orders. Someone has communications. Someone has a plan. After the disorder of the outbreak, even temporary organization can feel reassuring. But the film gradually teaches us not to confuse organization with knowledge. An institution may control a space while misunderstanding the threat inside or beyond it. A person may hold formal authority while depending on information supplied by someone with far less rank. Jerry's role becomes important precisely because he moves between these levels. He rarely possesses the greatest institutional power in a room, yet he increasingly carries something those institutions need: comparative experience. That gives him influence without complete control. His access is partly conditional. The people protecting his family expect his expertise to serve the larger response. This creates a relationship in which personal security and institutional usefulness are connected. Jerry does not simply volunteer from a position of complete freedom. The broader emergency places pressure on him to become useful again. The film does not need to turn that pressure into an elaborate political argument for it to affect our perspective. It reminds us that power can define which risks become acceptable for somebody else. Gary's skills make him valuable, and that value opens doors, but it also makes him someone who can be sent toward danger. His family experiences the other side of that arrangement. They possess emotional importance but little ability to influence the larger systems deciding what happens next. Their safety depends partly on decisions made far beyond them. This reinforces an imbalance already present in the narrative. Some characters can move through institutions, while others can only be affected by them. Jerry is unusually positioned between those groups. He is not a commanding official, but neither is he an anonymous civilian without access. He understands enough about institutional behavior to communicate with people inside those structures, while his primarily emotional identity remains tied to his family. That intermediate position helps explain why the audience can accept him as both vulnerable and privileged. Power also changes according to location. In one environment, military control may determine who can move and where. Somewhere else, local knowledge becomes more valuable than formal rank. A specialist may briefly command attention because the group believes that person possesses the explanation everyone needs. In another moment, survival may depend on somebody noticing behavior rather than possessing status. This constant redistribution of authority supports the film's central argument about perspective. Reality cannot be defined permanently by the person with the highest title. The crisis continually exposes gaps between what people are authorized to decide and what they actually understand. Jerry becomes increasingly important because he learns to respect those gaps. He listens to people whose knowledge is narrow but relevant. He does not assume that one source can explain everything. When new evidence conflicts with an earlier assumption, his advantage is not that he can force reality to match the previous theory. His advantage is that he can revise. That capacity gives him a different kind of power. Institutional power works through command. Jerry's growing power works through interpretation. The distinction becomes especially significant because the infected cannot be negotiated with, intimidated, or persuaded by human authority. Social status means nothing to the threat itself. A government official, soldier, scientist, parent, and civilian all face the same basic biological danger. The hierarchies humans create remain important for distributing resources and access, but they do not alter the threat's behavior merely because people believe they should. World War Z uses this indifference to destabilize conventional images of control. A wall can communicate power until the threat reveals the limitation of the wall. Armed protection can communicate power until the situation develops faster than protection can respond. Expertise can communicate power until evidence contradicts the hypothesis. The movie repeatedly places human confidence beside something that does not recognize it. That is why reaction becomes so important. Jerry often watches the moment when a system discovers that its assumptions are no longer sufficient. His position allows the audience to experience authority, not as a permanent condition, but as something that must constantly prove itself against changing evidence. This does not mean the film argues that institutions are useless. Jerry could not complete his journey without organized assistance. Transportation, communication, protection, medical knowledge, and cooperation all matter enormously. The film's point is more complicated. Resources become effective only when they are connected to an accurate reading of the situation. Power without understanding can produce confidence without security. Understanding without power has the opposite limitation. A person may recognize something important and still lack the ability to act on it. Jerry's journey gradually brings these two sides together. His observations acquire greater consequence because he can eventually communicate them to people and systems capable of testing, applying, or distributing what has been learned. The audience's judgment therefore begins to shift away from rank and toward responsiveness. Who deserves credibility in a particular moment? Not automatically the person standing at the top of the hierarchy. The film repeatedly asks us to look at who has actually encountered the relevant evidence, who can distinguish assumption from observation, and who is prepared to change position when the facts change. Jerry earns authority through that process, rather than simply receiving it from the screenplay because he is the protagonist. Even so, the movie never completely removes the privileges surrounding him. His ability to travel and gain access remains exceptional. Recognizing that does not diminish his competence. It places that competence in context. He can build a broader perspective because powerful systems make his movement possible. This makes the film's relationship with power reciprocal. Jerry needs institutions to extend his access. Institutions need Jerry to interpret fragments they have not successfully connected. Neither side is sufficient alone. By this point, World War Z has shifted the viewer a considerable distance from the first moments of chaos. We began with systems collapsing so quickly that authority seemed almost meaningless. Now authority has returned, but in a different form. It is fragmented, conditional, and dependent on knowledge. And that has moral consequences. Once people possess different levels of access, mobility, information, and protection, survival choices cannot be judged as though everyone is operating from the same position. Decisions that appear cold from one perspective may look different when the surrounding constraints become visible. Actions that appear rational may become troubling when we notice whose safety is being prioritized. The next change in viewpoint therefore concerns more than who can define reality. It concerns how the film teaches us to judge the people trying to survive inside it. World War Z complicates moral judgment by placing nearly every important decision inside conditions where ordinary standards have become difficult to apply cleanly. The film does not remove morality from the crisis. It changes the circumstances under which moral choices are made. Jerry Lane moves through a world where time is shortened, information is incomplete, resources are limited, and hesitation can expose other people to danger. Under those pressures, actions that might look harsh from a safe distance can become understandable without becoming automatically admirable. That distinction matters because the movie rarely gives its characters the comfort of perfect options. Jerry is usually choosing between risks rather than between obvious right and wrong. Protecting one group may require leaving another. Following a promising lead may mean accepting danger that affects people beyond himself. Institutional decisions may seem impersonal, yet they are often being made by people trying to preserve whatever capacity remains. The film's presentation encourages us to judge these decisions through context. Jerry's family is the clearest example. His desire to keep them safe gives the audience an immediate emotional position. We understand why their survival matters to him before we understand almost anything about the wider catastrophe. That alignment is powerful because it makes his later decisions personal rather than abstract. But the film gradually expands the scale around that private concern. Jerry is not the only parent trying to protect a family. He is not the only person facing separation or uncertainty. Once the movie begins showing the magnitude of displacement and collapse, his family remains emotionally central to us while becoming morally less unique inside the world of the story. That creates tension between personal loyalty and collective responsibility. Jerry would naturally prefer to remain with the people he loves, yet his experience may have value beyond his household. The film does not treat that conflict as proof that one side is morally pure. His responsibility to his family is real, and so is the possibility that his knowledge could help others. The audience is therefore encouraged to understand why he leaves without being asked, to believe that the decision carries no cost. This pattern repeats in different forms throughout the film. Authority figures frequently have to reduce complex human situations to questions of capacity, security, and usefulness. Such reasoning can feel cold because it transforms people into categories. Yet, World War Z usually provides enough surrounding pressure to make the logic visible. Understanding the logic is not the same as endorsing every result. That difference is central to the movie's moral lens. The film often positions the viewer close to someone forced to make a decision while keeping the consequences wide enough to remain uncomfortable. Jerry benefits from institutional access because he is considered useful. That may protect his family, but it also reveals how survival resources are distributed unevenly. A system under extreme pressure begins prioritizing people according to what they can contribute. From Jerry's perspective, accepting that protection is understandable. From outside his perspective, the arrangement looks more troubling. The movie does not stop for a long ethical debate about this inequality. Instead, it embeds the contradiction in the structure. Our protagonist receives opportunities that many anonymous civilians do not, because we are aligned with him. Those opportunities initially feel like necessary means of keeping the story and Jerry alive. Once we recognize the privilege involved, however, the same events can be seen differently. This is where perspective changes judgment. The film does not need to declare Jerry selfish or heroic. It shows him operating inside systems that make certain choices possible for him and impossible for others. His moral position cannot be separated from his acts. The same principle applies to communities attempting to defend themselves. Preparation can look responsible because people are trying to create order in a rapidly deteriorating world. Defensive choices can also produce exclusion. A boundary protects those inside partly by distinguishing them from those outside. World War Z rarely resolves that contradiction into a simple lesson. Instead, it shows how quickly survival can turn moral categories unstable. Fear makes solidarity necessary, but fear also encourages people to narrow the circle of responsibility. Institutions need cooperation, yet scarcity creates pressure to prioritize. Individuals need one another, but every additional person may appear to represent another risk. The film's strongest moral moments emerge when it allows those tensions to remain visible without pretending every choice is equivalent. Some actions are clearly reckless, others are compassionate. Many sit somewhere between, shaped by incomplete information and consequences nobody can fully predict. Jerry's own behavior generally pushes the film toward pragmatic compassion. He is observant and cautious, but he does not treat other people simply as obstacles. His ability to cooperate becomes as important as his ability to analyze. Knowledge repeatedly reaches him through other people, which prevents the story from turning survival into pure individualism. He needs pilots, soldiers, doctors, officials, strangers, and companions. The film's information structure itself becomes an argument against the fantasy of solitary mastery. Yet cooperation in World War Z remains fragile because everyone is operating under different levels of fear and knowledge. What looks irresponsible from Jerry's position may make sense from someone who has seen less. What appears obvious to the audience after several stages of his journey may be impossible for a newly encountered character to understand. The movie therefore asks us to judge actions according to available context, rather than hindsight alone. This becomes especially important as Jerry's observations grow more precise. The more he understands, the easier it becomes for the viewer to forget how recently he knew almost nothing. World War Z repeatedly reminds us that knowledge changes responsibility. A person cannot respond to information they do not possess. Once information becomes available, however, failing to reconsider earlier assumptions becomes harder to excuse. That is where Jerry's adaptability gains moral as well as practical value. He does not insist on preserving a belief merely because it once seemed reasonable. When experience complicates his understanding, he changes course. The film quietly treats that willingness to revise as a form of responsibility. By now, the audience has moved far from the opening position. The crisis is still terrifying, but our judgment has become more selective. We are learning that survival decisions cannot be understood solely by looking at their outcomes. We must also ask what people knew, what options they possessed, whom they were responsible for, and how much power they actually had. World War Z does not provide a perfectly consistent moral universe. Its speed sometimes prevents consequences from receiving the attention they might deserve. But at its best, the film refuses the easiest equation: survival equals virtue. Instead, survival reveals position. Who receives protection? Who can move? Who must stay? Who is believed? Who is useful? Who has enough information to choose differently? And once the film has made those distinctions visible, its formal choices become impossible to separate from them. Camera distance, editing, scale, and sound do more than create excitement. They determine whose fear feels immediate, whose suffering remains abstract, and which pieces of information become available at exactly the moment our judgment is ready to change. World War Z changes the viewer's understanding of the outbreak not only through what Jerry Lane discovers, but through the way the film controls distance. At its largest scale, the infected are presented almost as moving geography. Human figures disappear into surges of bodies, streets become patterns of motion, and individual identity is difficult to separate from collective panic. At closer range, however, the same threat becomes legible through behavior. The film constantly shifts between those two scales, and the meaning of what we see changes with the distance. When the camera pulls back, comprehension weakens. We can register magnitude, speed, and collapse, but we cannot easily identify individual causes or choices. The infected appear less like separate attackers than a force moving through space. This visual strategy supports Jerry's early uncertainty. He can witness enormous consequences without possessing the information necessary to interpret them. The distant image therefore creates knowledge of scale while withholding knowledge of detail. Closer framing reverses that relationship. Once Jerry begins searching for patterns, the film increasingly makes small reactions important. A face, a pause, a body that is treated differently from those around it, details that would vanish inside a wide image can suddenly carry more narrative value than the spectacle surrounding them. This is one of the film's most effective formal shifts. World War Z begins by making size terrifying. Later, it makes selectivity meaningful. Editing controls that transition. Early sequences are often organized around rapid changes in location and direction. Jerry and the viewer are forced to react before the environment can be fully mapped. Cuts arrive with new threats, obstructed routes, shifting crowds, and incomplete information. The pace produces a sensation that understanding is always arriving slightly behind events. As Jerry becomes more analytical, the same editing system begins serving another purpose. Instead of merely accelerating danger, cuts can connect observations. Something seen in one environment gains significance because the film later presents a comparable or contradictory detail elsewhere. Meaning is built across separated moments. The audience is encouraged to remember. That matters because Jerry's developing theory depends less on one isolated revelation than on comparison. Editing allows the movie to turn geographical distance into analytical connection. Locations separated by enormous physical space become part of the same mental pattern. Sound contributes to this control of access. In crowded sequences, noise often overwhelms precise understanding. Engines, movement, alarms, voices, impact, and human panic merge into a dense environment. The soundtrack places us inside Jerry's difficulty rather than above it. We hear enough to feel threatened, but not always enough to organize everything calmly. When the film reduces that sonic density, attention sharpens. Silence or relative quiet becomes important because the viewer has been conditioned by overwhelming noise. A quieter space does not automatically feel safe. It can make every small sound more consequential because suddenly the audience has enough room to listen. That shift from sensory overload to concentration parallels Jerry's changing position. At first, the world provides too much information to process. Later, survival depends on isolating one meaningful signal from everything else. Production design works similarly. Different locations appear to offer different degrees of order. Some spaces suggest institutional control. Others show visible collapse. Some provide boundaries that appear reassuring, while others expose how easily human systems can be overwhelmed. But the film repeatedly prevents architecture from becoming proof of safety. A strong structure can influence our expectations because cinema has trained audiences to read walls, gates, secure rooms, and controlled interiors as protection. World War Z exploits that assumption. Physical organization often produces emotional confidence before the story reveals whether that confidence is justified. This means space becomes part of the film's information system. The viewer is constantly evaluating environments before knowing whether those evaluations are correct. Open spaces may appear dangerous because movement is exposed. Enclosed spaces may appear safer until confinement creates another problem. Height can provide separation, but distance does not necessarily provide understanding. The movie keeps correcting our spatial assumptions just as Jerry corrects his intellectual ones. Lighting and color generally remain functional rather than symbolic. The film distinguishes environments and conditions without turning visual design into a complicated code that must be decoded. What matters is how easily we can read a space and how quickly that readability can be disrupted. That restraint supports the film's broader method. World War Z does not want the viewer pausing to admire techniques separately from danger. Form operates inside the experience of access. Even the largest spectacle serves this purpose when it works well. The famous images of infected moving in massive concentrations are memorable because they transform individual bodies into collective movement, but their analytical value comes from contrast. The farther away we are, the less human behavior appears individually readable. Jerry's eventual progress depends on moving mentally in the opposite direction away from the mass and toward distinctions. This relationship between image and understanding explains why the film can feel different in its later stages without completely changing genre. The scale narrows because Jerry's questions have narrowed. The story no longer needs every sequence to prove that the catastrophe is enormous. That fact has already been established. What the audience now needs is access. The formal movement from overwhelming scale toward controlled observation therefore mirrors Jerry's intellectual movement. Wide images establish helplessness. Close attention creates possibility. Rapid editing produces uncertainty. Comparative editing creates pattern. Noise overwhelms. Quiet isolates information. None of these techniques solves the crisis by itself. Their function is to determine how much the audience can perceive at any particular moment. By controlling that perception, World War Z gradually changes the meaning of looking. At first, seeing more only proves how little anyone understands. Eventually, looking carefully becomes the beginning of an answer, and that prepares the film for its decisive reframe. Once Jerry has gathered enough observations, earlier moments can no longer remain isolated pieces of suspense. Full knowledge will force us to return to them and recognize that the movie has been placing crucial information in front of us long before its significance became clear. The full spoiler reframe of World War Z begins with a discovery that changes the meaning of Jerry Lane's entire journey. The infected are not simply attacking humanity indiscriminately. Jerry gradually recognizes that they appear to ignore certain people whose physical condition makes them unsuitable hosts. What first looked like occasional hesitation or random inconsistency becomes the central pattern. The movie's largest threat has a blind spot of its own. That realization does not arrive as a sudden piece of exposition handed to Jerry by an expert. It develops from observations accumulated across his movement through the crisis. This is important because the ending does not introduce an entirely new logic. It reorganizes details that the film has already allowed Jerry and therefore the audience to encounter. Earlier irregularities now have a different meaning. When Jerry notices infected passing over certain vulnerable people rather than attacking them, those moments initially compete with much larger dangers for our attention. The film has trained us to look at crowds, collapsing defenses, and immediate escape routes. An individual who is not attacked can seem less important than hundreds of infected who are. The finer hypothesis reverses that hierarchy. The people the infected ignore become more important to Jerry's understanding than the people they attack. This is the decisive reframe because it transforms absence into evidence. Jerry has spent much of the film learning from visible behavior, how quickly the infected react, how they move, how rapidly situations change. Now, what does not happen becomes equally meaningful. That change returns us to the film's central perspective axis. From the outside, the crisis is defined by magnitude. Humanity appears confronted by an almost incomprehensible biological force spreading through populations faster than organized responses can contain it. From Jerry's increasingly selective position, however, the crisis becomes readable through exceptions. The answer is not hidden somewhere beyond human perception. It has been present in small deviations from the dominant pattern. Jerry's experience in Jerusalem is especially important when reconsidered from this later perspective. The sequence initially overwhelms through scale. A defensive system that appears to offer meaningful protection fails when the infected concentrate and breach the boundary. The spectacle reinforces one of the film's recurring corrections. Human preparation can appear absolute only until the threat encounters the assumptions built into that preparation. But Jerry sees more than the failure of the defenses. Amid the panic, he notices behavior that does not fit the apparent rule of indiscriminate attack. At the time, he cannot prove what that behavior means. The surrounding crisis is too immediate and survival requires movement. Yet, the detail remains available to him. The movie asks the audience to do something similar. We are allowed to register the exception without being told how to classify it. Later knowledge changes its status. What looked like a curious anomaly becomes part of a pattern. This reveals something important about Jerry's competence. His principal strength is not instantaneous deduction. He does not witness one unusual event and immediately announce a perfect explanation. His ability is cumulative. He remembers unresolved information and allows later evidence to alter its meaning. That approach separates his perspective from the more rigid forms of authority the film has already questioned. Institutions frequently need to act quickly, so they construct working assumptions. Jerry also needs working assumptions, but he remains willing to treat them as temporary. The difference becomes decisive. By the time Jerry reaches the World Health Organization facility in Wales, the movie has radically reduced its physical scale. The global catastrophe is still occurring, but the film no longer needs another panoramic demonstration of destruction. Jerry's problem has become precise enough that a contained medical environment can carry more significance than another collapsing city. This reduction in scale is one of the ending's smartest structural choices. The film that has repeatedly shown humanity overwhelmed by enormous numbers now places its central character inside controlled corridors and rooms where success depends on testing one narrow idea. The visual argument has reversed. Earlier, greater visibility exposed greater helplessness. Now restricted space creates the possibility of understanding. Gary explains the basic hypothesis. The infected may avoid people suffering from serious illness because those people represent poor hosts for transmission. The idea remains unconfirmed. This distinction matters. The film does not portray him as possessing complete scientific certainty simply because the narrative has reached its final act. He has a theory built from observation. Testing it requires risk. This is also where Jerry's relationship to knowledge changes once more. Throughout most of the film, he has depended on movement through external environments. He gathers information because each place exposes him to another fragment. At the WHO facility, he must stop traveling geographically and instead commit to an interpretation. The journey becomes a test of whether comparison has produced usable understanding. That transition gives the final sequence tension different from the earlier action set pieces. The central issue is no longer whether a huge defensive structure can withstand thousands of infected. It is whether Jerry has read their behavior correctly. The stakes remain enormous, but the evidence becomes intimate. Jerry deliberately places himself in a condition intended to make the infected perceive him differently. The movie keeps the operational specific secondary to dramatic principle. He is attempting to disguise healthy human value through controlled medical vulnerability. The moral and intellectual irony is significant. For most of the film, illness belongs naturally to the vocabulary of danger. The world is being destroyed by a biological catastrophe. Health should represent safety, while sickness should represent threat. Jerry's hypothesis reverses that assumption. In relation to the infected, visible vulnerability may create protection. The film has therefore changed the meaning of weakness. A condition that would ordinarily make a person more vulnerable may make that person less attractive to the infected. Human categories of strength and weakness no longer align neatly with the biological logic governing the threat. This is more than a convenient solution to a survival problem. It completes the movie's ongoing correction of perspective. Again and again, World War Z has shown that human beings misread circumstances when they assume the world will behave according to familiar hierarchies. Worlds seem powerful until scale defeats them. Authority seems powerful until information becomes outdated. Mobility seems like security until every destination reveals another form of instability. Health now seems like an unquestioned advantage until Jerry discovers that the infected may interpret it as precisely what makes someone desirable. The final test therefore depends on accepting a paradox. To move safely through the infected, Jerry must temporarily make himself appear biologically undesirable to them. Once the experiment succeeds and he moves among infected who do not respond to him as they normally would, the movie provides confirmation without claiming a complete cure has been discovered. This distinction is crucial to the ending. Jerry has not eliminated the outbreak. He has changed humanity's position relative to it. Earlier, people generally had two options when encountering the infected: escape or attempt to stop them. Jerry's discovery introduces a third possibility. Humans may be able to alter how they are perceived. That is a perspective solution in the most literal narrative sense. The infected have been the object of human observation throughout the film. Jerry has studied them. Scientists have tried to understand them. Military systems have reacted to them. Now Jerry's insight depends on reversing the relationship and considering how humans appear from the infected side. The question becomes not simply, what are the infected doing? It becomes, what are they recognizing? That shift is the deepest reframe in World War Z. Jerry succeeds because he eventually stops treating the infected only as an attacking force and begins considering the selection process embedded in their behavior. The threat has a form of biological prioritization. Once he recognizes that, behavior that previously seemed inconsistent becomes coherent. This also changes our understanding of the film's title and scale. The story presents itself as a world war. Yet Jerry's contribution is not a conventional victory produced through superior firepower. The decisive advance is interpretive. Humanity gains leverage by understanding the terms on which the threat engages with it. That does not make military or institutional power irrelevant. The ending requires those systems to convert Jerry's discovery into something broader than one man's survival. Knowledge has to be tested, communicated, produced, and distributed. The film returns to the idea that interpretation without infrastructure remains limited. Jerry can identify the possibility. Larger systems must make it useful. This relationship also reframes his privilege. Earlier, Jerry's institutional access separates him from many civilians. His mobility allows him to gather a perspective almost nobody else could gather. By the ending, that unusual access becomes meaningful precisely because the information can move back outward. The direction reverses. For most of the film, information flows toward Jerry. People tell him what they know. Locations give him evidence. Specialists offer fragments. His movement collects those fragments into one developing understanding. After the discovery, the useful information can flow away from him. His perspective becomes valuable because it can stop belonging only to him. That is an important change in narrative power. Gary remains the protagonist, but the solution cannot remain individualized if it is going to matter. The film's final movement, therefore, expands again after the narrowness of the WHO sequence. Humanity now possesses a means of improving its chances, not an instant conclusion to the war. The infected still exist. The crisis continues. Losses cannot simply be reversed. The ending deliberately avoids transforming Jerry's breakthrough into total restoration. That choice preserves the enormous scale established at the beginning. One observation can change the balance without magically repairing the world. This is why the conclusion is more effective when understood as a reorientation rather than a cure. Humanity moves from helpless reaction toward strategic understanding. At the start of the film, Jerry's family is caught inside an event nobody around them can interpret. Immediate survival depends on movement, instinct, and luck. Jerry then travels through systems trying to produce larger explanations, only to discover that nobody possesses a complete view. The ending does not finally give him complete knowledge either. It gives him enough. That distinction is central. World War Z never needs Jerry to know everything. He only needs to identify the piece of knowledge capable of changing the relationship between people and the infected. This returns us to the idea established much earlier. More visibility does not automatically mean more understanding. The film has shown enormous crowds of infected. It has shown collapsing cities and international responses. Jerry has crossed vast distances. None of that scale by itself produces the breakthrough. The breakthrough comes from noticing who is being overlooked. The movie's final perspective therefore makes its earlier spectacle look different. The masses remain frightening, but they are no longer completely unreadable. What originally appeared as pure chaos now contains a behavioral logic that does not make the infected sympathetic or transform them into psychologically complex antagonists. The film does something more functional. It gives their behavior enough consistency for observation to become useful. Once that consistency is recognized, the audience's emotional position changes as well. Fear does not disappear. Certainty does not suddenly become complete, but helplessness is reduced. This is the final shift from being overwhelmed by the image to understanding the pattern inside it. There is also a satisfying connection between Jerry's personality and the kind of solution he finds. World War Z has not defined him primarily through physical dominance. He survives many situations physically, but his lasting contribution comes from attention. Brad Pitt's control performance makes sense in retrospect, because Jerry has been presented throughout the film as someone who processes before he declares. His restraint is therefore not simply a character trait. It is connected to the movie's method of discovery. The ending rewards accumulation rather than revelation for its own sake. Details acquire meaning because Jerry has carried them forward. His mobility matters because comparison becomes possible. His access matters because different people possess different fragments. His willingness to revise matters because the first explanation is not enough. The film's perspective axis can now be resolved. World War Z begins by positioning the viewer outside a catastrophe so vast that individuals appear almost meaningless against it. It ends by revealing that survival may depend on the smallest distinctions inside individual bodies and behavior. The global view establishes the problem. The selective view changes humanity's relationship with it. That is why the final reframe does not reduce the significance of the massive spectacle that came earlier. It makes that spectacle legible in a new way. The crowds are still overwhelming, but their behavior is no longer perceived as completely indiscriminate. The world has not become smaller. The viewer has become more precise. And Jerry's journey has taught us that precision is what the film values most, not omniscience, not absolute control, not the fantasy that one person can command a global catastrophe. What matters is recognizing the detail that forces the entire picture to be seen differently. The crisis remains unfinished, but the position from which humanity faces it has changed. For the first time, the infected are not simply determining the terms of every encounter. Human beings understand enough to change how those encounters begin. Brad Pitt's performance in World War Z is built less around dramatic transformation than around consistency of attention. Jerry Lane moves through wildly different environments, but Pitt rarely changes the character into a different kind of protagonist simply because the scale changes. The same qualities that define Jerry inside his family: watchfulness, restraint, quick assessment, concern, kept under control remain visible when he enters military, scientific, and international spaces. That continuity helps the audience stay aligned with him even when the film itself keeps changing location. The performance works through reaction more often than declaration. Jerry does not need to explain every conclusion because Pitt frequently lets the audience see the moment when information registers. A slight delay before movement, a glance redirected toward unexpected behavior, or a shift from immediate fear toward concentration can indicate that Jerry has noticed something the surrounding characters have not yet processed. This matters because the film's perspective depends on the viewer learning to trust his attention. Trust, however, is not the same as certainty. Pitt avoids playing Jerry as someone permanently several steps ahead of everyone else. He often looks alert without looking confident. That distinction makes the character's competence more believable. Jerry may recognize that a detail deserves attention before he understands what the detail means. His performance therefore leaves room for uncertainty. When he enters spaces controlled by military or political authority, Jerry's posture does not suddenly become commanding simply because he has become narratively important. He listens. He allows specialists to hold temporary authority. He asks for information and evaluates what he hears. That behavior keeps the ensemble meaningful. Supporting performers can briefly control the emotional or informational center of a scene because Jerry does not need to dominate every exchange. A soldier can embody practical knowledge. A scientist can introduce a possibility. An official can define institutional pressure. A frightened civilian can reveal the human consequences of decisions being made elsewhere. Pitt's restraint allows these characters to register without threatening the film's central alignment. The audience remains with Jerry because we watch him absorb them. That is one of the most useful differences between narrative centrality and performance dominance. Jerry is almost always the character whose continued movement organizes the film, but Pitt often plays him as a receiver before playing him as an initiator. The strategy suits a story in which useful knowledge is scattered across many people. If Jerry entered every scene already possessing the strongest interpretation, the film's information structure would collapse. Other characters would exist merely to confirm his intelligence. Instead, the performance repeatedly places him in the more interesting position of needing something from them. The emotional restraint also affects his relationship with his family. Pitt establishes affection without turning Jerry's domestic life into a separate sentimental performance style. His concern becomes clear through proximity, urgency, and protective behavior. Once separated from his family, the performance does not repeatedly externalize longing through large emotional displays. That keeps the family present as motivation without interrupting the investigative rhythm. There is a trade-off. Because Jerry remains so controlled, the audience may sometimes feel closer to his reasoning than to his emotional exhaustion. We understand why he continues, but the film gives relatively little space to the accumulating psychological cost of what he has witnessed. Pitt's steadiness supports narrative clarity, yet it can also make Jerry seem insulated from experiences that might visibly destabilize another character. This limitation becomes more noticeable because the supporting cast often supplies sharper emotional contrasts. Characters Jerry encounters may be frightened, grieving, suspicious, hurried, authoritative, or physically exhausted. Their stronger outward reactions make Jerry's containment more visible. The ensemble effectively defines him by difference. He appears composed partly because others are allowed to appear less composed. That contrast helps the audience use him as an anchor. When a new environment produces confusion, Jerry's focused behavior suggests where attention should go. We do not necessarily know what matters yet, but his reaction can tell us that something deserves to be remembered. Performance becomes a form of editing before the cut happens. The viewer's attention is narrowed by the actor's attention. This is particularly important once Jerry begins recognizing exceptions in infected behavior. Pitt does not transform those observations into theatrical revelation. He plays them as pieces entering a larger mental structure. The audience can sense significance without receiving certainty too early. That restraint protects the later reframe. If Jerry reacted as though every unusual encounter had solved the mystery, the eventual pattern would feel artificially delayed. Instead, Pitt's performance allows the film to preserve the distinction between noticing evidence and understanding evidence. The physical performance reinforces the same idea. Gary is capable in dangerous environments, but Pitt does not present his body as invulnerable. He moves urgently, uses available space, depends on other people, and frequently reacts to conditions he cannot control. The character's authority therefore comes less from physical dominance than from composure under unstable circumstances. This keeps audience sympathy attached to competence without turning competence into fantasy. The performance also supports the film's final change in scale. When the story narrows from global spectacle to the more contained WHO sequence, Pitt does not need to reinvent Jerry for the quieter tension. His entire performance has already prepared us to watch small behavior choices. By that stage, concentration itself has become dramatic. A hesitation matters. A decision to test an idea matters. A controlled reaction to uncertain evidence matters. The film can reduce the number of people on screen because Jerry's face and body have been established as places where information is processed. That may be Pitt's most important contribution to the perspective structure of World War Z. He makes observation active. Jerry does not simply stand around looking thoughtful while the plot happens. His attention shapes what the audience notices, which possibilities remain alive, and when an apparently minor detail begins to deserve greater weight. At the same time, the performance never completely closes the distance between character and viewer. We are aligned with Jerry, but we do not receive unrestricted psychological access to him. Pitt's restraint preserves a small barrier. That barrier is useful. It prevents the movie from becoming entirely about one man's emotional experience of catastrophe. Jerry remains personal enough to care about and controlled enough to function as a route through something much larger than himself. The ensemble then supplies the perspectives he cannot generate alone. In that sense, performance throughout World War Z mirrors the movie's broader thesis. No single person possesses the whole picture. Jerry's value comes from being able to receive, compare, and respond to fragments supplied by others. Brad Pitt keeps us close to the person doing that work, but he never lets closeness become omniscience. World War Z uses image and sound to control not only how frightening the outbreak feels, but how much of it the audience can actually understand. The film repeatedly gives us visual evidence before giving us interpretive certainty. We can see infected movement, collapsing defenses, terrified crowds, and rapidly changing spaces. Yet the meaning of those images often remains incomplete until Jerry Lane has enough context to read them differently. Form therefore becomes part of the movie's information system. The most obvious visual strategy is the contrast between scale and detail. At a distance, the infected become almost impossible to distinguish individually. They pour through streets and over barriers as collective motion. The image communicates magnitude immediately, but individual behavior becomes harder to read. The farther the film pulls us from a particular encounter, the more the infected resemble an environmental force rather than separate human bodies. That distance shapes our emotional position. Large images create helplessness because they remove the possibility of attending to one manageable problem. Jerry can deal with a person, a corridor, a vehicle, or a specific route. A mass extending across the frame suggests something beyond individual control. The audience understands the threat before understanding its rules. The film later reverses that relationship by moving attention towards smaller behavioral details. Once Jerry begins searching for patterns, close observation becomes more valuable than spectacle. The movie has already shown us what thousands of infected can do. Repeating only that scale would add intensity, without necessarily adding understanding. Instead, later sequences increasingly make the viewer watch for distinctions: who is targeted, who is ignored, how quickly the infected react, and what changes when a particular condition is present. The visual hierarchy shifts. One apparently minor human body can become more important than a massive crowd because that person may contain the evidence Jerry needs. Camera placement supports this development by keeping Jerry inside unstable spaces rather than giving him a permanently privileged overview. He frequently sees only part of what is happening. Obstacles, crowds, architecture, and movement interrupt his access, even when a wider shot gives the audience more spatial information than Jerry personally possesses. It rarely provides the complete explanation. We may see more space. We still do not necessarily know more. Sound reinforces that restriction. During crowded or collapsing situations, the soundtrack can become dense with alarms, engines, voices, impacts, movement, and panic. Individual information competes with environmental noise. The audience experiences something close to Jerry's problem. There is too much happening at once to process every signal equally. That sensory overload is effective because the movie later learns to use quiet differently. When the environment becomes more contained, a reduced soundscape increases sensitivity. A small noise can suddenly feel dangerous because the film has removed the protective anonymity of chaos. Silence is no longer an absence of tension. It becomes a condition in which attention intensifies. The WHO facility makes particularly strong use of this change. The global catastrophe remains outside the immediate setting, but the film narrows both physical space and sensory information. Instead of another enormous public collapse, Jerry must move through an environment where control depends on careful observation and restraint. The audience has fewer distractions, which makes individual sounds and movements carry more weight. The film's sound perspective has effectively followed Jerry's intellectual development. Early chaos overwhelms discrimination. Later, quiet demands discrimination. Music also generally serves momentum and tension rather than explaining the infected emotionally. The score can increase urgency, but World War Z does not attempt to humanize the threat through a rich interior musical identity. The infected remains something the audience primarily encounters behaviorally. That choice preserves distance. We are asked to study what they do, not imagine what they feel. Spatial design contributes to the same process. Different locations appear to offer different levels of safety based on how they are organized. Open streets expose people to uncontrolled movement. Military spaces suggest procedure. Defensive structures communicate separation. Aircraft promise mobility. Laboratories suggest knowledge. The film then repeatedly challenges those first impressions. A controlled environment can become unstable. A strong boundary can fail. A place associated with expertise can still contain uncertainty. World War Z uses architecture to create assumptions before events test them. This makes location itself a perspective filter. When Jerry enters a space that appears ordered, the audience temporarily borrows the confidence implied by that order. When the film reveals its weakness, our interpretation changes with his. The Israeli sequence demonstrates the contrast dramatically. The scale of the environment initially suggests a level of protection absent from earlier chaos. Organization appears to have converted knowledge into security. But once the infected overcome that apparent advantage, the image stops communicating control and begins communicating the danger of misreading scale. The very structures designed to keep disorder outside become part of the visual evidence that no defensive system is meaningful unless it matches the actual behavior of the threat. By comparison, the later medical setting is less visually spectacular but more intellectually useful. Its confined spaces force the audience to pay attention to individual movement and small choices. The film has moved from showing us too much to making us concentrate on exactly what matters. That transformation explains why the final act can sustain tension without trying to exceed every previous action sequence in size. The movie has changed our expectations. We no longer require another city to fall in order to feel the stakes. Once Jerry has developed a plausible interpretation of infected behavior, a single encounter can test the entire theory. Image and sound therefore track the audience's journey from exposure toward access. At the beginning, World War Z overwhelms us with evidence we cannot organize. Large-scale images prove the crisis is real, while chaotic sound prevents comfortable distance. As Jerry learns to separate meaningful details from background noise, the film gradually does the same for us. The spectacle does not disappear. Its function changes. What once made the infected seem unreadable becomes the background against which one exception can finally be seen, and that formal precision is essential to the film's strongest reframe. Jerry's breakthrough works because World War Z has taught the viewer that access is never simply about how much is visible or audible. It is about knowing where to direct attention. The perspective strategy of World War Z is effective because it turns Jerry Lane's limited access into a method of discovery. But that same strategy begins to weaken whenever limitation stops feeling like a meaningful restriction and starts feeling like narrative convenience. The film is strongest when Jerry's incomplete knowledge forces the audience to reconsider what has already been seen. It is less convincing when characters, locations, or consequences seem to exist mainly long enough to provide the next useful fragment. The global structure creates this problem naturally. Jerry travels through several radically different environments. Yet the movie rarely remains with any of them after his immediate purpose there has ended. That keeps the narrative moving, but it also means potentially rich perspectives are opened and closed very quickly. A community may demonstrate one way of responding to the outbreak. A military group may reveal another. A specialist may introduce a particular interpretation. Once Jerry has absorbed what the story needs, however, those viewpoints often lose narrative access. This can make the world feel simultaneously enormous and thin. We see evidence of a catastrophe extending far beyond Jerry, but the film does not always give those distant lives enough duration to become independent experiences. They remain part of his informational route. The limitation is especially noticeable because World War Z repeatedly emphasizes global scale. The movie wants the outbreak to feel planetary, yet its human perspective remains heavily concentrated around a single mobile protagonist. Those two choices are not incompatible, but the balance is uneven. Jerry can move from one crisis to another. Most people cannot. Because the camera moves with him, the audience receives repeated opportunities to escape a location narratively just as its local consequences become most complicated. The result protects momentum at the expense of continuity. The same issue affects supporting characters. Many are effective precisely because they briefly alter Jerry's understanding. Their competence, fear, testimony, or local knowledge can change the direction of the film. But because the structure is organized around Jerry's continued movement, several of those characters function more strongly as perspective providers than as fully sustained dramatic centers. That does not make them badly drawn in every case. It means the narrative relationship is unequal. Jerry collects something from them. The movie rarely allows them to collect an equally substantial perspective from him. This imbalance also softens some of the moral questions introduced by Jerry's privileged access. Earlier, the film makes it possible to notice that his usefulness gives him transportation, protection, and institutional attention unavailable to countless others. That could have produced a more sustained examination of how catastrophe reorganizes human value. Instead, the urgency of the investigation usually moves the story onward before that tension can deepen. The film therefore raises questions its structure is not always interested in holding. There is also a point at which Jerry's observational competence becomes almost too perfectly aligned with what the screenplay eventually needs. His breakthrough is prepared through earlier exceptions, which gives it legitimate structural support. Yet because the entire information route has been concentrated around him, the film risks making the global solution feel dependent on one unusually well-positioned observer. The ending partly corrects this by showing that institutions are still required to turn insight into broader survival strategy. Jerry does not solve everything alone. Even so, the perspective has narrowed so strongly around his accumulated observations that other possible centers of discovery remain mostly invisible. This makes the film's world less intellectually plural than its geography suggests. Another break occurs in the emotional register. Jerry's restraint is valuable because it makes observation readable and prevents melodrama from overwhelming the investigation. But the film occasionally protects that restraint so thoroughly that the psychological consequences of his journey feel underdeveloped. He sees catastrophic loss, repeated institutional failure, and extraordinary danger. Yet the story remains primarily interested in what these experiences teach him about the infected rather than what they alter within him. The result is clarity without equivalent emotional accumulation. For an 8 out of 10 film, these weaknesses do not erase what the perspective structure accomplishes. They reveal the trade-off behind it. World War Z achieves remarkable forward momentum because it refuses to remain anywhere for very long. It produces a coherent investigation because it keeps Jerry at the center. It makes observation dramatically useful because his perspective collects almost every important clue, but each strength narrows something else. Movement reduces local depth. Centrality reduces alternative viewpoints. Restraint reduces psychological exposure. Efficiency reduces aftermath. The perspective breaks most clearly when the audience becomes aware that the world is being arranged for Jerry's route rather than simply discovered through it. Fortunately, the film's strongest idea survives that limitation. Jerry never gains a complete view of the catastrophe. His breakthrough remains partial, practical, and dependent on other people turning knowledge into collective action. World War Z may narrow its global crisis too aggressively around one man, but it ultimately avoids claiming that one man is enough, and that distinction allows its final perspective to remain more interesting than its occasional shortcuts. What remains after World War Z has finished moving across cities, institutions, defensive systems, and theories is not the image of humanity finally controlling the catastrophe. It is the recognition that control was the wrong expectation. Jerry Lane's journey matters because he finds a way to change humanity's position inside the crisis without pretending that the crisis itself has disappeared. That difference is what makes the film's final perspective more effective than a simple victory would have been. At the beginning, the audience is overwhelmed by scale. Jerry sees fragments. Institutions possess incomplete reports, and every apparent refuge seems vulnerable to information nobody yet has. The infected dominate perception because they determine the terms of almost every encounter. By the end, the balance has shifted. Humanity still faces the same enormous threat, but Jerry's observation has made one part of its behavior readable. That limited understanding creates practical possibility. The film therefore moves from helpless visibility toward selective knowledge. The final perspective axis resolves through that contrast. Global catastrophe from the outside versus survival knowledge discovered from inside, one limited route. Neither perspective replaces the other. The global view prevents Jerry's discovery from feeling like complete salvation. The world remains damaged, dangerous, and unfinished. The selective view prevents the spectacle from remaining meaningless. Small distinctions now matter because someone has learned how to recognize them. That is also why Jerry works as the center of this particular film. His strongest quality is not dominance, it is responsiveness. He listens, compares, notices, and revises. Brad Pitt's restrained performance makes those processes visible without turning them into constant declarations of brilliance. The filmmaking follows the same movement. Large images initially reduce people to crowds and motion. Later, tighter spaces and quieter moments make individual behavior more legible. Form and character eventually arrive at the same conclusion. Seeing everything is less useful than understanding what deserves attention. The film is not equally strong everywhere. Its relentless movement can leave supporting characters and communities behind before their perspectives fully develop. Its enormous geography sometimes promises a richer plurality of experience than the Jerry-centered structure actually provides. Emotional consequences can also receive less space than the investigation itself. Those limitations keep the movie from becoming a completely rounded portrait of global catastrophe. But they do not erase the clarity of its central viewing strategy. For me, World War Z lands at 8 out of 10. Its strongest achievement is not simply the speed of its infected or the size of its spectacle. It is the way the film gradually teaches the audience to stop being impressed only by scale and begin searching for exceptions inside it. Viewers who value tightly controlled survival thrillers, restrained central performances, large-scale tension, and stories in which observation becomes more important than brute force are likely to find plenty here. Those wanting deeper attention to the many communities Jerry passes through may feel the limits of the film's narrow alignment more strongly. What ultimately remains is a world still larger than any individual perspective, but no longer completely unreadable. Jerry never gains the whole picture. He finds the piece that changes how the picture can be faced. World War Z leaves us with a useful reversal. For most of the film, the crisis seems terrifying because it is too large to understand. Cities fall, defensive systems fail, and every new location appears to reveal another reason why human control is inadequate. Yet Jerry Lane's journey ultimately suggests that survival does not begin with controlling the entire picture. It begins with recognizing the detail that changes how the picture is understood. That is why the film's restricted perspective matters. Jerry never becomes an all-knowing observer standing above the catastrophe. He moves through fragments, borrows knowledge from other people, makes provisional judgments, and revises those judgments when new evidence appears. The world remains larger than his experience, but his experience becomes precise enough to matter. And perhaps that is the most lasting perspective World War Z leaves behind. The enormous image can tell us how serious a problem is, but magnitude alone cannot tell us how to respond to it. Sometimes the decisive change comes when attention moves away from what everyone can already see and toward the exception that has been sitting quietly inside the pattern. The film does not end with complete certainty. Humanity has gained an advantage, not absolute security. That unfinished quality fits a story built around limited knowledge. Jerry finds something useful because he learns what deserves attention, not because he somehow learns everything. So when you think back on World War Z, which viewpoint stays with you more strongly? The overwhelming global scale of the outbreak, or Jerry's gradual realization that the smallest behavioral exception could matter more than the largest spectacle? If you enjoyed this kind of perspective-focused movie analysis, subscribe to Film Perspective Media for more critical breakdowns of how films control what we see, know, and judge. Thanks for watching, and for taking one last look at World War Z.